Have you ever prayed with all your heart, and all you heard was silence? No voice, no sign, no answer. Just stillness. It feels like standing in a desert after the storm. The sky is clear, the ground looks empty, and nothing seems to move. Yet beneath that soil, seeds are breaking open, roots are spreading. What looks lifeless is actually full of preparation. God's silence is not his absence. His silence is his strategy. Right now, many chosen ones are asking, "Lord, have you left me?" And the Spirit whispers, "No, I am closer than ever. I'm preparing you for what eyes cannot yet see." In this message, we'll uncover 7 prophetic meanings of God's silence. 7 truths that will shift how you see this quiet season. And I urge you to stay with me until the very end, because the last one is the sign most people miss. But once you see it, you'll know this silence was never rejection. It was confirmation of your destiny. Before we dive in, here's what I want you to do. If this word is resonating in your spirit, hit the like button, subscribe, and type stillness in the comments. Because stillness is not empty. It's the sacred place where God shapes his chosen ones. By declaring it, you're saying, "Even in silence, I trust the preparation." So take a deep breath. Open your spirit. Because what looks like emptiness is actually the womb of destiny. Let's step into the first revelation together. Number 1. Silence is the soil. Think of a seed. When it's placed in the ground, it looks like nothing is happening. It disappears into darkness, hidden from every eye. But underground, the shell cracks, roots push down, and life begins to form. That's what God does in silence. His quietness is the soil he plants his chosen ones in. What feels like nothing moving is heaven working in secret. Have you noticed this in your own life? You pray, you wait. And the longer you wait, the more it feels like your dreams are being buried, not blessed. But God doesn't bury to kill. He buries to grow. A farmer doesn't panic when he can't see the seed. He knows silence is the safest place for transformation. God, the eternal farmer, watches over you in the same way. Here's the mystery. The soil feels like a grave, but it's actually a womb. What looks like death is the very environment of birth. That's why digging too soon can ruin the process. Sometimes the greatest act of faith is not asking again and again, but trusting the silence as proof something is already happening underground. Maybe that's why God hides the seed. If you saw fragile roots forming, you might pull at them too early. If you watched the slow cracking of the shell, you might think it was breaking apart instead of breaking open. Silence protects what is sacred. Even Jesus had 30 silent years before his ministry. No miracles, no crowds, just hidden preparation. If the Son of God needed silence before his calling, why would you think your hidden season means abandonment? And when the seed finally breaks through, it doesn't look like a seed anymore. It has changed form completely. In the same way, you won't come out of this silent season the same. Silence is not punishment, it's transformation. So how should you respond when God plants you in silence? First, stop despising the dark. The soil's darkness is not the same as the grave's. One ends life, the other begins it. Second, resist comparing your growth to others. Different seeds break ground at different times, depending on their destiny. Third, water the soil with faith. Speak life even when you see no evidence, because your words can nourish what's hidden. Right now, if you feel stuck in silence, remember, you're not stuck, you're planted. And planting always comes before elevation. But the soil doesn't always feel safe. Sometimes it feels suffocating. Sometimes the silence feels like too much to carry. And that's where the second truth comes in. Because if silence is the soil, it's also the detox. And what that detox reveals will shake you even deeper. Number 2, silence is detox. Have you noticed what happens when the noise finally stops? At first it feels unbearable, because in the absence of sound, everything you've buried rises up. The thoughts you tried to outrun, the emotions you ignored, the memories you wanted to forget. Silence works like still water. When the river rushes, the bottom stays hidden. But when the water calms, the mud settles, and what was always there becomes clear. That's what happens in your spirit when God quiets everything around you. Silence exposes what the noise was hiding. Here's the mistake many chosen ones make. They confuse exposure with punishment. Why am I battling old fears? Why are past wounds resurfacing? Did I fail somehow? No. The silence isn't punishing you. It's purifying you. Detox always feels worse before it feels better. Think of a physical detox. Headaches, fatigue, irritability. The body pushes toxins out. Spiritually, it's the same. In the silence, anger surfaces, insecurities grow louder, doubts try to cling. But that's not failure. That's freedom beginning. Let me ask you, in your quiet moments, do your deepest fears suddenly roar louder? That isn't the enemy winning. That's heaven drawing poison out of your soul. And here's the prophetic truth. God never purges what he doesn't plan to replace. If he's allowing the silence to bring up what's toxic, it's because he's preparing to fill you with something holy. He makes room by removing the counterfeit. So don't fight the feelings, journal them, pray through them. Write down the dreams, the emotions, the tears. Those notes may later become the very map of your healing. Picture a goldsmith refining gold. The fire doesn't destroy the gold. It brings impurities to the surface. The silence of God is like that fire. Painful, yes. But every impurity rising is proof you're closer to purity, closer to the vessel he created you to be. Here's the revelation. Silence isn't showing you what you lack. It's showing you what you're leaving behind. Every fear and false belief surfacing in this season is a chain breaking off. But detox doesn't stop at exposure. Detox prepares for sharpening. Because once the poison is removed, God begins to shape you with precision. And that's where the third truth of silence takes us. A truth that explains why the pressure you feel is not random, but prophetic. Number 3. Silence is sharpening. Picture a sword. A piece of metal can look strong, but it cannot cut. Only when it's pressed against the grindstone, sparks flying, friction rising, does it become sharp enough to fulfill its purpose. That's what God does with his chosen ones in silence. You feel pressure, resistance, even sparks in your spirit, but none of it is wasted. Every clash is shaping you for the mission ahead. Have you noticed how silence often comes with unexpected battles? Relationships breaking, finances shaking, doors closing. You pray for peace, yet pressure increases. Why? Because God sharpens through resistance. What feels like struggle is actually the whetstone of heaven. A dull sword can't cut, protect, or advance, and that's why God won't let you stay dull. Silence refines your patience, your discernment, your faith. The very waiting that frustrates you is sharpening you. Think of David. Before facing Goliath, he fought lions and bears in hidden fields. No applause, no audience, just silent battles sharpening his courage and his aim. The giant wasn't his first fight. It was only the proof that sharpening had worked. So let me ask you, what battles have risen in your silence? Could they be sharpening your edge right now? Here's a revelation. The enemy doesn't fight what has no future. If you felt unusual resistance in this quiet season, it's because heaven has marked you for impact. Resistance is not rejection, it's confirmation. But sharpening isn't painless. Metal screams against stone, sparks fly, pieces are shaved away. That's why silence feels like loss. Friendships fall off, habits break, comfort zones collapse. Yet all of this is part of the forging. Notice this. Sharpening doesn't change the material. It reveals what was always inside. The edge was already there. The silence only brings it out. So instead of asking God to remove the pressure, ask him to make you sharp through it. Pray, Lord, don't let this pressure be wasted. Sharpen me through it. Because when this season ends, you'll realize what felt like breaking was actually forging. And here's your midway revelation. Chosen one, you are not being destroyed. You are being designed. But sharpening doesn't end with the blade. A sword, once sharpened, isn't waved around immediately. The warrior hides it in its sheath until the right moment. And that leads us into the fourth truth of silence. Number 4. Silence is hiding. Picture a warrior pulling back a bow. The arrow is sharp and ready, but before release it stays hidden in the quiver, held in tension, waiting. That's what God does with His chosen ones. Silence is often His way of hiding you. Not because you're forgotten, but because the moment of release hasn't come yet. Have you ever felt invisible? Overlooked? Like no one sees your gifts? That isn't rejection, it's divine concealment. God hides what is valuable until the right time. Think about it. Treasures aren't left on sidewalks. They're locked in vaults. If heaven placed greatness in you, He must hide you first. Exposure too soon can destroy what was meant to bless nations. Moses was hidden in a basket before he could lead. Elijah hid by the brook before confronting kings. Even Jesus lived 30 hidden years before His ministry. If God hid them, why wouldn't He hide you? The tension is this. Hiding feels painful. It feels like delay, like your destiny will never unfold. But hiding isn't denial. It's protection. Sometimes the very doors you beg to open would crush you if they opened too soon. And there's another layer. God hides you from enemies you don't even know are waiting. Silence becomes your shield, like the arrow in the quiver, unseen. But when the time comes, the release is sudden and unstoppable. Practical step: stop comparing your timeline to others. Flowers bloom in different seasons. An oak doesn't envy a rose, and a rose doesn't imitate a tree. Your season of hiding is unique to your calling. Let me ask you, what if your invisibility right now is proof of a coming unveiling? What if the silence is the bowstring, pulling you back only to launch you further? Here's the revelation. The longer the arrow is pulled back, the greater the force of release. The longer God keeps you hidden, the greater your impact when He reveals you. But hiding always leads somewhere. God doesn't conceal without aligning. And once He's hidden you long enough, He starts moving people, places, and pieces into divine order. That takes us to the fifth truth of silence. Number 5. Silence is alignment. Look at the night sky. At first the stars look scattered, random without pattern, but then they form a constellation, order hidden inside chaos. That's what God does in silence. He aligns. When life goes quiet, it feels like you've lost direction. But in truth, heaven is moving unseen pieces, people, opportunities, even delays, all positioning you exactly where you need to be. How many times have you looked back and realized what felt like a setback was actually a setup? The job you didn't get, the relationship that ended, the door that closed. At the time it broke you, but later you saw the alignment. Joseph lived this truth, betrayed by his brothers, sold as a slave, thrown into prison, years of silence. Yet every step was alignment. Egypt needed a dreamer in the palace, and Joseph's silence was the map that took him there. Maybe that's what God is doing with you right now. Every no wasn't rejection. It was redirection. Every pause wasn't wasted time. It was positioning time. Think of it like a battlefield. Soldiers don't hear the general moving the pieces. They only see the strategy when the battle begins. In the same way, silence is heaven's strategy room. But alignment requires surrender. To move you forward, God may shift relationships, close doors, or uproot what felt secure. Like a chessboard, pieces sometimes move backward before advancing. You may not understand the shift, but He sees the entire board while you see only one square. So instead of asking, "Why did this happen?" start asking, "What is this aligning?" That question opens your eyes to divine patterns you couldn't see before. Here's the revelation. Alignment proves destiny is bigger than preference. God isn't only answering your prayers, He's answering the prayers of generations through your positioning. And alignment always leads to surrender. Because once God moves the pieces, the only way to stay aligned is to let go of control. And that's the next truth of silence, the one that feels like breaking, but actually unlocks everything. Number 6. Silence is surrender. Picture Jacob wrestling with the angel through the night. He refuses to let go until the blessing comes. By dawn, he is limping. His strength is broken, but his identity is transformed. He is no longer Jacob. He becomes Israel. That's the power of silence. It brings you to the end of your own strength. It forces surrender. Notice how your prayers change in quiet seasons. At first you cry out loudly, demanding answers, but as silence lingers, your words soften until they turn into surrender. Not my will, but yours. That is what God is after. Silence strips away the illusion of control. And here's the paradox. Surrender feels like loss, but in the kingdom it's always gain. Think of Jesus in Gethsemane. Heaven was silent. The cross was ahead. And in that silence he prayed, "Father, let this cup pass, yet not my will, but yours." Out of surrender came resurrection. Maybe that's where you are right now. You've tried everything, knocked on every door, prayed every prayer, and still silence. But what if the silence is not waiting for God to move, but waiting for you to release control? Picture holding a rope tightly. The harder you grip, the more it burns your hands. The moment you release it, the pain stops. That's surrender. Not letting go of God, letting go of control. Practical step. Change one phrase in your prayer. Instead of "When, Lord," say, "What do you want in me right now, Lord?" That shift opens the doorway to peace. And here's the hidden blessing. Surrender unlocks what striving never could. There are doors that only open for those who yield. Now hear this clearly. Everything until now was preparation. The soil planted you. The detox purified you. The sharpening forged you. The hiding protected you. The alignment positioned you. And the surrender broke you open. But what comes next is the reason you were chosen. The final revelation, the one most people miss. And if you see it, it will change everything about how you view this silence. Because silence doesn't end with emptiness. Silence ends with revelation. Number 7. Silence is revelation. Have you ever stood outside just before sunrise? The sky is dark, the air heavy, and for a moment you wonder if light will ever return. Then, almost without warning, the horizon glows. One ray breaks through, and night silence gives birth to morning. That's what happens in your spirit. God's silence is not the end. It is the womb of revelation. Everything you walked through, the soil, the detox, the sharpening, the hiding, the alignment, the surrender, was preparing you for this. Because some truths can only be heard in silence. Secrets heaven only whispers when the noise is gone. Think of Elijah on the mountain. A mighty wind tore through, but God was not in the wind. An earthquake shook, but God was not in the quake. A fire blazed, but he was not in the fire. And then, a gentle whisper. The silence carried the voice. Chosen one, hear this. The silence you endured was not punishment. It was positioning. Only in silence could your ears tune to the whisper. Only in silence could your heart become sensitive enough to catch revelation. Here's the paradox. Many fear silence because it feels empty. But silence is never empty. It is full. Full of messages you couldn't hear before. Full of guidance waiting to unfold. Full of destiny being revealed. Let me ask you, what if the silence you resented is actually the confirmation you prayed for? What if his quiet was the loudest answer of all? Think of Jesus. 3 silent days in the tomb. Heaven quiet. Hell thought it had won. But on the 3rd day, silence broke into resurrection. That is the pattern. Silence always precedes revelation. Practical step. Instead of filling silence with distractions, sit in it. Ask, "Spirit, what are you showing me here?" And wait. The whisper will come. And here's the revelation I promised from the beginning. God's silence doesn't just speak to your present, it speaks to your destiny. Only those marked for something greater are trusted with silence this deep. Not everyone will understand. Not everyone is chosen to walk this path, but you are. So when you look back, you won't call it abandonment. You'll call it preparation. You'll say, That was the time God stripped me, shaped me, and whispered truth that changed my life forever. Silence was never rejection. Silence was your confirmation. And that leads us into the conclusion. The declaration you'll carry beyond this message. Chosen one. Now you see it. The silence you feared was never abandonment. It was preparation. Every step of this journey had purpose. The soil planted you. The detox cleansed you. The sharpening forged you. The hiding protected you. The alignment positioned you. The surrender broke you open. And the revelation confirmed who you are. You didn't find this message by accident. Heaven guided you here, whispering to your spirit, preparing you for this moment. Not everyone will understand. Some will walk away from silence too soon. But you stayed. You listened. You endured. And because of that, you're stepping into a deeper awareness of your calling. Here's what I want you to carry. Silence is the language of destiny. The very moments that felt empty were the ones heaven used to fill you. The times you thought you were forgotten were the exact times you were being formed. So from now on, when silence comes, don't panic, don't doubt, don't dig up the seed. Instead, declare, this silence is my preparation. This silence is my confirmation. This silence is proof I am chosen. And I want you to declare it publicly. If you've made it this far, type in the comments, I am stepping into my destiny. Your words carry power. By writing it, you seal this revelation in your spirit. Also, don't keep this to yourself. Share it with someone walking through silence. They may be crying for a sign, and your act of sharing could be the very answer they were waiting for. And before you leave, one last thing. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Not just to hear another word like this, but to stay connected to a tribe of chosen ones on this same journey. You are not alone. And don't click away too quickly. There's another message waiting right here on the screen, connected to this one. It will take what you've received and carry it deeper. Remember this, silence was never the end. It was the beginning, the womb of your destiny. And from this moment forward, you'll never fear silence again. You'll recognize it, embrace it, and thank God for it. Because chosen one, the silence was the sign you were being prepared for greatness.